third thing. No, that's the very beginning.
Yeah, that's like the very beginning. Like, what's all this? And then it cuts to office guy.
Right. Well, it cuts to guy in his he's getting visited.
Oh yeah. All right. Anyway, I'll start this off. Stream's going. Everything's going. It's Thursday, May 23rd, 2019. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, not late to this party at all, we are reviewing the 1999 film, The Matrix.
20th anniversary.
Nope, it's 99.
It's definitely 99 because I was in high school.
Yep, I saw it with Ken.
And when we went to RIT, it was like playing in like the IMAX because it still wasn't that old.
Yep.
So
we went and saw it again in the IMAX, and that was the fourth time I'd seen it in the theater.
It was in an IMAX theater, but it was just a 35 millimeter film.
Bigger
with better on a better sound system.
Yep, I remember when we went to do that.
And slightly bent.
Was that at Tinseltown?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Tinseltown. All right. And on the live stream is good. There's already 3 people watching. I guess they
because everyone went and it was cheap.
Yep. All right.
Like, I think everyone went to see that.
Yeah. All right. I got some.
But like it wasn't crowded. It was just all our friends got together.
All right. I got some various. Like when we saw Little Nicky in the theater and we all went.
Well, that was only like 4 of us.
Yep.
That was like me, you, Pete, and Greg.
I think Kate was there too. I think a bunch of us went.
I don't think
we
took very few people, and we were the only ones in.
Our
there.
group were the only people in the theater.
I think there was only like 4 or 5 of us.
No, we took multiple cars.
I don't think there were that many people seeing it at that one showing.
Because I remember we had a problem with going to see the last Lord of the Rings movie.
Well, that was where people were across the seat.
Yep.
We didn't have enough cars.
We didn't have enough cars. We all crammed into
any
Ken's
Lord of
car.
the Rings movie. We didn't have enough people.
Yeah. That was before I had my car then.
I think that was the first one, not the last one.
Yeah, it was.
I want to watch the Lord of the Rings, but it's not on like on any of the streaming things.
Yeah, and I'm too lazy to actually pirate unless
I'm either gonna pirate it or I'm gonna like pay what it like either YouTube or Amazon Prime. You can pay like $2.
No, I've done that for some movies.
It's actually kind of okay if you do it because then later when you're like, where is that thing streaming? And you go, it's like, oh, I could just watch it because I paid for it like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I figure something I'll watch multiple times, it'll be okay to.
I own a few movies in there. If you
right, because they can
choice TV shows.
It's like they can never take that away, right? Otherwise, that's some bullshit.
Otherwise, they got a refund.
Right.
Small claims court.
Right.
I feel like I could win in a small claims court against Amazon if they took down the movie I paid for.
I was actually trying to watch because Star Wars Episode 8 was on Netflix, and I wanted to watch Episode 7. And it wasn't.
Man, I gotta go back in time to high school and be like, yeah, 7, 8, 9 are gonna happen.
So I went to Amazon and I searched for Episode 7, and I had bought it at some point.
That's kind of like when I say, ooh, that indie game looks good. Let me buy it on Steam. It seems like, yo, Rim, you've got a problem. Not only do you own this game, but you bought it 3 years ago and you've never even installed it.
That's right.
All right. You got any opening bits? I got a few.
I went to the doctor.
Yeah, I got a few little opening bits.
I sold my bicycle.
Oh, yeah. All right, I got an opening bit. So, yeah, it's nice out. Finally biking to work like every day.
Except today.
And it was funny because I got up and I was like, oh, I should bike to work. And I look outside and it has that look of it going.
I already knew I wasn't going to bike to work today because A, I was going to the doctor after. Well, I left work early to go to the doctor and then came here. But B, I checked the weather religiously. All the fucking time. And I knew it was going to rain today.
Yep. So I'm at work. And of course, the problem was it was only raining while I would have had to bike to work, and then it was just like sunny and nice for most of the day, and then it was rainy again right as I would have biked home. It only rained at the times I would have been biking.
That's when it likes to rain.
I know, it knows. It's like, oh, has Rim got his bike out? Ha ha ha! Zeus and Poseidon are both just like, yeah, fuck him up. So I was thinking of Poseidon because of Pages of Pain.
I have not read any more painful pages since we last...
So all I will say about that is that
Did you read all the painful pages?
Nope, but I'm real near the end. I hit the point where I remember the first time I read the book, it kind of accelerates, like the last bit is one long scene. And I kind of just read that in one go as a kid because I was just like, what the fuck is going? Oh, and all the really bad things just happened, like one after another. And I forgot about something pretty horrifying that happened.
I'm sure many horrifying. If it's the Pages of Pain, it's not the Pages of Pleasant.
If the hands getting cut off is like a level 4 painful, and the foot thing, like that's maybe a level 6, this is like seems like it's 10, and then you realize it's 11, and that ain't even the worst thing that happens in this book.
Dick cut off to replace a nose. I don't know.
It's worse than it's pretty bad. It's pretty gruesome. It's painful pages are happening here.
All right.
But the one thing I can say about biking is that because I ride a hybrid, like a performance hybrid bike, kind of the way I've ridden mountain bikes my whole life, I actually took the time to fully inspect my rear cassette's actually in really good shape. My chain is stretched to a laughable degree. Because I haven't been doing anything. I've been not maintaining my chain for shit.
Apparently what's supposed the deal is, right, is you have a chain and the cassette, and the chain gets stretched over time, and then that will erode the cassette. So usually you want to replace them together. And cassette, even though a cassette looks like it would be an expensive part,
it's really not.
It's just a bunch of gears in a stack. It's not,
kind of a pain to replace it, but I'll have the bike shop do it. They charge like nothing to do that.
It's not actually that hard. But anyway.
It's not hard. It's just annoying because I don't have a lift to like put my bike on.
Is that if you replace your chain when it gets stretched and the cassette is still in good shape,
A+.
You can usually get a new chain on there and get 2 chains per cassette.
And that is what you do if you're a responsible bike owner who does maintenance on a regular basis.
But if the chain and cassette are mismatched, what happens is like the chain will slip over the gears. So like you'll pedal and like the chain is spinning around, but it like
over the gears of the cassette,
hops over the spikes. And it goes like grant, grant, grant.
That'll happen if the cassette is bad or the chain is bad.
Right, and that's what you're trying to avoid.
Or if the chain is bad, but the cassette is brand new and perfect, you'll get the opposite. The chain will stay in the gears around the corner, usually on the front, and then pull up behind and loop under itself, and that just causes an instant faceplant.
Yep.
Like it's called chain suck. And I'm more afraid of that than I am of terrorists, murderers.
You could just be afraid of like a stick in the wheel.
Yeah, I'm more afraid of chain suck because stick in the wheel, I assume if a stick goes into my wheel, someone did it on purpose, and I probably am aware that I have an enemy who's attempting to do this to me. I doubt a random hobo is going to stick a broom through my spokes randomly on the street.
It can happen.
I'm more afraid of chain suck than I am
There
of
hobos
that.
just push people on the subway tracks.
Yeah, that is true. That is, in fact, true. I encountered a really, really aggressive hobo yesterday, actually.
Okay.
But they didn't, like, it wasn't even on the level of worth talking about on GeekNights. I thought of it just now.
All right.
It was below the gutter punk who threatened to stab me in Portland. Which that's now the bar. I won't talk about a hobo unless they're above the line of had a knife at my back and threatened to stab me with it.
Okay.
So I love how all our friends from the West Coast are like, oh, you're in that Riverside Park? Yeah, that'll happen there.
Okay.
But the last thing I'll say about biking is now that I'm biking to work every day, I'm reminded of one of the most painful no-sees that I have, that the vast majority of people who own a bike in New York City, possibly the world, but I'm just focusing on New York City because that's the data these are the data that I have no idea how bikes work and like just they use a bike without understanding what any of the things on the bike do except the pedals, kinda.
Yep.
They're in the wrong gear. Like they have never attempted to squeeze their front brake at any point. I love it when I see someone who is biking and the chain is making that sound of, you are between gears. Your bike is desperately trying to shift and can't. And that's just how they bike.
I don't know how people bike with, like, I see this bike where the drivetrain is just made of rust, and it's like, it's still working. I'm like, how are you riding that? How does that even work?
Well, I remember when my bike got stolen in Beacon, one of the things, because the dude clearly didn't know how to ride a bike. Because
I see tons of people way more fit than me, and I'm just going right by them.
Yep.
And they don't see, I'm like, all right.
But he had cut the control wire to the front gear because I don't think he knew how it worked. So it would he basically locked the bike in one gear and there was no way to change gears.
Okay.
That's one of the modifications he made to it when he was riding it around before I stole it back. So anyway, got some news. I think we had an update on our Pokemon Uniqlo.
It's not a big news, but the
GeekNights follow-up.
We just did that Pokemon T-shirt story on Tuesday. So the person who submitted that T-shirt was DQ'd from the contest.
Yep.
And it appears that the $10,000 prize will go to nobody.
Because apparently one of the other finalists was also disqualified for the same reason.
Yep.
And I guess Uniqlo and Pokemon together were like, you know what? Fuck it.
And then it also appears that the T-shirt was supposed to appear in Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Well, that ain't happening.
That will not happen. However, everyone's like, oh, it's probably going to be in the game, so you got to do some data mining, find it, right?
Yep.
Because they probably programmed it already or whatever. So yeah, that's interesting. See what happens there.
Yep. So the Li Wenpei actually like tried to work it out with them, from what I can tell, and Uniqlo didn't respond and just ended everything. They basically just walked away from this whole situation. And apparently the
I don't know if Uniqlo or Nintendo were the ones paying out the prize.
I believe Uniqlo was, because here's what the rules of the thing actually said. Uniqlo may withdraw prizes and or terminate merchandising of T-shirts with winning artworks without prior notice to the entrant, irrespective of the originality of the artwork submitted to the entrant, if similar artwork is already publicly available outside Uniqlo stores. So if I made a completely original design that was similar to an existing design that I may or may not have known about,
basically, they have lawyers. They covered their ass.
Yeah.
And so the ass covering was sufficient.
In fact, if I submitted something,
They got nice butt armor. It's
Yep. So basically, everyone walked away from this, and the whole contest just ended in failure. That's a shame. I think the moral is don't enter art contests.
Regardless, there will still be some nice Pokemon shirts on sale at Uniqlo. Don't you worry.
I feel like what we're going to see is at lower tier anime cons, this exact T-shirt will be sold by bootleggers in the artist alley.
Lol.
I think that's what we're going to see.
Lol.
Like 100%. And I want you all to post pictures of this when you find it at your local friendly anime convention.
You should make a parody of the shirt.
I should.
It's a parody.
Make some sort of joke about Uniqlo.
I don't know. What else has a long thing and three dot things?
I don't know. I could come up with something.
Yeah. Anyway.
So in some other news, this is gaming news, but we're going to focus more on the political angle. So there is a bill.
It's not that interesting.
Because it's Thursday, not Tuesday.
Whatever.
There is a bill in Congress of the United States that has, and this is shockingly, like if you don't live in the U.S., bipartisan bills don't exist anymore.
Well, it's because they do. They're just usually things you never hear about because you don't care about them.
Well, no, usually they are the bills that are literally necessary to be passed for the government to keep running.
Yeah, that kind of
like
stuff.
The bill.
Stuff that's not going to be reported in the news, though.
Unless they lose bipartisan support.
Right.
Which happens, actually.
Anyway, the point is that much like the country of Belgium, which banned pretty much all gambling stuff in games whatsoever.
Yeah, Belgium went so far that
China, which also has banned almost similar to Belgium.
Belgium banned gambling in games, even if that gambling is virtual, to the point that Blizzard said they just won't sell their games there anymore.
That's right. China is banning, but also went further into limiting other forms of speech like violence and such. But the bill that's in the Senate right now is only what it says is if your game has random shit like loot boxes, or pay to win shit, right? Even if it is not random, and you're selling this game to minors, then you can't do that. You have to basically go through great measures to make sure that people under the age of 18 are not playing your game, and then you can do some of this gambling biz.
I would argue this is actually a good thing for the industry because you know what's going to happen. Everyone who wants to play these games who is under 18 will play them anyway and buy them with their parents' credit card and everything will be fine. Just like how everyone certifies when they make an account on anything.
Everyone sees porn online.
Everyone's over the age of 13.
Whether you're 8 or 80.
Because you're not allowed to actually provide services to children under COPPA. So almost no one makes a website that technically lets you use it in any way if you're under the age of 13.
Right. But hopefully what this will do is, the industry, most industries, video game industry included, right, are of the opinion like, we have to self-regulate to a degree such so that the government will not come and regulate us.
I'm pretty okay with...
And then when the government comes to regulate, they say, no, let us self-regulate, like Facebook. No, let us regulate ourselves.
Well, because here's a fine point on this. If you're not aware, people think you got to be 18.
Let the fox watch the henhouse. We will do a good job. Trust us.
People think you have to be 18 to do things like, well, I guess back when Blockbuster existed, to rent an adult video, you needed to be 18 by law. To see an R-rated movie, you got to be 18 to buy the ticket. To buy a violent video game, none of those things are laws.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I went to see R-rated movies like when I was 13, 14
We did too.
by myself. All the time, theater would gladly sell me a ticket because there was no law about that.
There were some theaters that voluntarily would try to prevent
Yep.
you. But
And if basically if local parents made a big deal about it, local theaters would enforce these optional rules, these self-regulated rules that the industry had put together just to keep the lawsuits away. So it's kind of the same thing with a lot of video game stuff. And this law would actually force compliance, or at least force ostensible compliance.
the most interesting part of the law is simply that they attempted to, in legal terms, define what counts as pay to win in a court of law.
Which I'm kind of excited about because fuck pay to win.
That's right.
Like, I want to use a blunt hammer to end anyone's ability to sell video games pay to win.
All right, there's also a couple related stories, and I would like to whisper into some be a lobbyist so I could whisper in some ears.
Oh, lobbyists would be a good job.
And be like, hey, Pokemon cards and Magic cards are basically the same thing. Why don't we apply this to those too?
Ooh.
Right? And B, the ESA, which if you don't know is basically like the RIAA for video games. It is like a bunch of, lawyers and lobbyists for the video game industry that are supposed to make sure the government doesn't do things like this.
Arguably they failed because their job was to
Well-
make sure laws like this don't appear.
Well, many people, the ESA does two things. It lobbies the government, right? And it helps fight, for the video game industry's interests in court.
Yep.
And it runs E3. And basically the members of the ESA are not happy with pretty much anything the ESA does. It's doing a real bad job.
Because E3 is a shit show.
It's doing a real bad job across the board. They want E3 to be split off into its own thing, and the ESA is doing a real bad job at lobbying, which is why these kind of laws are coming out. So the downfall of the ESA has been in the news recently as well. So it's an interesting coincidence that here comes an example of the ESA doing a bad job, at least at its goals, whether if you agree with those goals or not. Right after there were stories about the ESA sucking.
What I am very happy about is the law seems to have
It'd be like if today there was a story about Rim being real bad at jumping or walking, and then next week there was a story about Rim tripping over his own feet.
Yep, basically. But this law...
Rim fell down and hurt himself.
I like how the bill...
Didn't I just read an article last week about Rim real bad at walking, and now there's an article about Rim falling over?
But the bill is very focused on the things we're actually mad about, and it is not in any way about violence, about content. It is literally...
Clearly, it's one of those ones where there's no senator in the Senate who knows a fuck all about any of this stuff, right? So it's clearly written by some congressional staff, like most things are, or who are intelligent and know what's up. And the senators support it because, this is to crack down on kids gambling, and pretty much any old white person can get behind that.
Yep.
So there you go.
So, quote from the article, under the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act.
There you go.
And they define abuse as basically addictive shit and manipulating them to get money out of them.
Yep.
Like that's kind of, it says, games that are marketed to children would be prohibited from implementing any pay-to-win mechanisms. All games would be forbidden from selling loot boxes to children, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see where this all goes, but it has bipartisan support, which is rare with this kind of law. Usually when there's bipartisan support for a law that's restrictive on media, those laws tend to be shitty laws. So the only problem is that right now, basically no legislation can move anywhere in our government because of the president refusing to sign anything.
I'm sure he will sign the Protect Children from Gambling Abuse.
I bet
whatever.
he won't.
Even this president will sign that.
I don't think so, because he basically just said that he won't sign anything until the House stops investigating him personally.
Why do you believe anything the lyingest liar in the history of lying ever says?
Because the one thing the lyingest liar doesn't lie about is threatening people unless they stop investigating him for shit.
That's actually not true. He threatens people all the time and then doesn't go through with it, or tries to sue people and fails all the time.
But in this case, it's something he actually has control over. Usually the threats he makes are things he can't actually do.
Yeah, I mean, just because he can do it doesn't mean he's gonna do it. Listen, if somehow this actually gets to his decks, I think he would be like, "Hey, look at me, I'm protecting kids from whatever." Okay.
I don't know. I bet he wouldn't. I bet this bill goes nowhere.
I mean, that's probably true also.
Yeah.
It's got to, I don't think it'll even get to this.
Yeah.
Right.
So, in some other last news, this is just a tweet, but I have a lot to say about it. The tweet was someone saying, oh, we're not dumbing down our culture at all. basically someone got a picture of at Target. They're selling classic movies on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, but instead of putting the title of the movie on the top of the cover like every DVD has been for all of history, they're putting the quote from the movie that basic people who don't know anything about cinema and have not seen these movies would recognize even if they don't know what the movie is called.
I don't understand what you're saying.
So the box for Scarface, the top says, "Say hello to my little friend," like that's the name of the movie. And at the bottom, in a much smaller font, Scarface.
I mean, someone who's still buying DVDs and Blu-rays, that's the kind of person that is probably a better sales dress that will sell more
Jaws
copies.
is titled, "You're Gonna Need a Bigger Boat," and then Jaws is in a little text at the bottom.
Okay. I mean,
So it's interesting because I think it is a very smart marketing decision.
it's good trade dress for, going for the target audience. Someone who's buying movies at Best Buy, right? It's like, they're not going to buy Jaws, how can you even sell a Jaws on DVD? That movie is just like so easily available.
Yep.
Right? But I guess that's probably the only way to convince someone to buy it is like, they see that and they're like, and then.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that people are really.
Jaws on TV all the time. Someone who's buying discs at Best Buy definitely has cable TV, is probably watching it.
But it sort of gets back to like, how do people find and search for things? A lot of people don't know a lot about things using someone's more likely to recognize, "Say hello to my little friend," than have any idea who Al Pacino is.
Right. Well, that's the other thing is that, somebody who when was Jaws in theaters? 1970 something or early 80s, late 70s, something like that, right? It's old. So people don't know it.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm
Even
not mad
smart-
about this. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the best
Who
part about
cares
this,
what the fuck is on the label of a disc? I'm more mad that why are people still buying discs?
Yeah.
Eliminate all physical media. It's worthless.
but the best part about this is all the replies to the tweet.
Stop polluting the earth with your plastic.
Because the replies to the tweet are things like, "Oh man, I can't wait to watch, you son of a bitch," or "I'm gonna have me some fun."
Go have me some fun.
Go have me some
Go
fun.
have me some fun.
Hey, have you seen "I'll Be Back" and its sequel, "Come With Me If You Want to Live"?
No, but have you seen I'm All Out of Bubblegum?
I feel like calling that movie "I'm Here to Chew Bubblegum and Kick Ass, comma, and I'm All Out of Gum" is literally the only way to get anyone who hasn't already seen that movie to see
After we're
that
done
movie.
with the show, you want to go watch Put the Sunglasses On? Put on the sunglasses.
No. God, that movie is a movie. All right. But anyway, things of the day. What do you got?
So there's this dude. What's his channel called?
His channel is called Goat Rides Bikes. That's a good
Okay.
channel. He's only got 428 subscribers.
Anyway,
Now he's got 429.
It's this bike riding guy. He's not the most interesting dude, honestly. Sorry, goat. He's not a bad dude, though. And what's interesting is it's a video of his bike commute, and he's narrating his bike commute. It's kind of a long one.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing is, his bike commute is from his suburban-ish home to his workplace, which is in a warehouse, in a place that I'd never heard of, known as the Springfield Underground.
Now, I assume when Scott said that it's like the Rochester subway, like some abandoned subway that someone got access to.
I'd never heard of the Springfield Underground before, obviously. Neither is Rim, neither have most people. But once you learn what the Springfield Underground is, it is fascinating and amazing.
Monorail.
Apparently, way back in the day, there was a mine. And they were mining, I think he said limestone for fertilizer.
Ooh. So
Right.
fun facts aside, you know what's under Detroit? What I think the biggest salt mine in the world? Like these salt catacombs?
Anyway, so that mine is obviously no one's mining there anymore. But it was this vast, empty underground space where a lot of rock had been removed. But it was pretty much flat with a ceiling, and some pillars of rock, because you can't remove them all, then they will collapse in on you, right? So some rock pillars, sort of like, the big empty warehouse.
So, Scott, here's a question. Do you know what it's called when a stalactite and a stalagmite meet?
A stag,
There is a word for
a
it.
stalag,
I looked it up.
everything
I actually forgot it. I don't remember the word.
a stalagnot, stalagmatite, magnetite. I don't know. Anyway, so in the Springfield Underground, what they did is they said, hey, we got this big empty space here, right? In this big empty space, it is always like 62 degrees, no matter fucking what.
No.
Right? It doesn't
That's how heat pumps work.
it doesn't get hot or cold ever. It's always the same temperature. There's a lot of room. It's big and wide and open, right? There must be some kind of ventilation going on. I don't know if he talked about that.
I mean, mines usually had some sort of ventilation strategy.
No one's right. I saw there was a part where he looks and there's a big hole in the ceiling with like water coming in from sunlight coming in. So, and what they did is well, all we got to do is between some of these rock pillars, we put up a few walls, right? And then the natural walls are behind there, and boom, you just got yourself a warehouse for like no effort. You don't got to build ceiling. You don't got to build wall. You build one wall. Boom, enormous warehouse. It is ultra secure.
Yep.
Right? It's gonna be real hard to get in there and rob those warehouses.
Yeah.
Right? B, ultra temperature and humidity controlled. You don't got to have HVAC or heating or anything. Right? It's just good to go. And you got tons of fucking room real cheap. Because who else wants to be underground? And it's enormous. So he bikes to work in a warehouse, and he bikes through this enormous Springfield Underground, and he shows you what's going on down there. They're building some more warehouses down there. They got all kinds of stuff.
Not bad. Stalagnate is where they meet.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam.
Anyway, but yeah, it was really interesting. I think the only thing that was that's like a waste of energy down there was that there's doing food storage, so they do have to have some refrigeration going on.
But the refrigeration only has to get from 62 down as opposed to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even in the hot 90-degree summer, if you had your warehouse outside, what would the bill be for that? They also have to light the whole thing, and I'm sure they must have added...
Light's pretty cheap.
I'm curious about the plumbing situation.
I mean, there's probably a bathroom in there somewhere.
There has to be. I mean, you wouldn't make it to the bathroom. It's too big.
Just poop
if you had to go outside to poop, you wouldn't make it. I guess you could just bring porta potties in and out at worst case.
You could just...
You do need running water to wash your hands.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of room for the parking lot. There's plenty of room to bike, so pretty fascinating to see what's going on in the place I didn't know existed, Springfield Underground.
So I got a question for you. When the first spy satellites were put up in space...
When was this? Like 60s?
60s, 70s?
Yeah.
Even 80s?
Okay. Well, yeah.
Definitely
like
80s. Earlier spy satellites. How do you think they got images back to Earth?
Well, they didn't have the internet. Right?
Yeah.
So they definitely had a satellite dish on the ground aimed at the satellite with some sort of data going between.
Nope.
Much like satellite TV.
That technology didn't really exist yet for images.
There was satellite television.
What
in the 80s?
What would they use in a satellite to capture the image to then transmit back?
A camera with a big ass fucking lens on it.
No, that was not feasible technology back then.
What do you mean? Why not?
Do you know how early cameras worked for like TV?
Right, but like a
that
TV
wouldn't
camera.
fit on a satellite. There's no way. Satellite.
They couldn't fit a TV camera from the 80s onto a satellite?
No, you also couldn't transmit that back. Satellites in that era fucking shot canisters of film back down to Earth. Physical film.
There's film, they took photos, and they dropped it.
TV cameras weren't even high enough resolution to get meaningful images from that.
And then they ran out of film and just stopped?
Yeah. That is literally how they worked, and this video explains in detail.
And you had to catch the film?
Yes.
What if the Russians caught the film?
So, if they shot the film down...
Did they go around trying to catch Russian film?
Yeah, if we didn't get the film down, the film was designed, if we didn't pick it up within 48 hours, it destroyed itself.
What did we try to catch Russian film?
This video will tell you everything you need to know.
Did we catch any Russian film?
I don't think we ever caught any of their film.
What kind of film was it?
Actually, this tells you everything about even how the lenses worked. The lenses actually had to be really complicated for a bunch of reasons that I don't want to get into.
Of course.
Because, yeah, this video is
also, they could zoom in way more than you think. They could zoom in real far.
Yep. How they calibrated the images. This video in 10 minutes will tell you some fascinating shit.
All right.
Yeah, they couldn't just
So are there a bunch of empty satellites up there?
So the satellites were deorbited, as far as I can tell.
Otherwise, I'd say, hey, let's go up and get one.
This is good biz.
It's got a real good lens on it. We can take photos with.
Yeah.
That lens is still good, even if the film is done.
The lens had a sweeping mechanism to make the lens take a picture of one part of the ground because the satellite's going by at a crazy speed. It would be blurry otherwise.
Yep.
So yeah, in the Meta Moment, the GeekNights Book Club book, as we talked about in the beginning, is a book by Troy Denning that is a Dungeons & Dragons branded Planescape book from the early days of the Planescape setting.
Officially licensed D&D novel.
That the first half of it is the first third of it is a straightforward D&D book, just like all that elf crap I used to read. And the rest of it is a trippy nightmare descent into hell. Is a pretty good way to describe it. Surreal nonsense happens at the end. And we're reading it. We'll probably be done with it by the next Thursday show.
We'll see.
I doubt it's going to be sunny every day.
We'll see.
Hey, you got a flight to Rochester. You can probably finish it on that flight.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, we can probably both finish it on that flight, if nothing else.
That's on the 4th of July, though.
Yeah, so worst case, in August, we will do this show.
Okay.
Probably before then.
The next convention we're going to is PAX West, which is a long time from now, but I mention it because badges will be on sale soon after Memorial Day.
But not before Memorial Day, so this weekend, you can just relax.
And then after that, you got to be on highest alert.
Yep, starting Tuesday morning, Eastern Daylight Time, it is red alert. And by Thursday, it is like black alert, like DEFCON 1, the nukes were launched.
Also, they are doing something. That they're undoing a previous policy.
Oh, the panel submissions are open too. I gotta get on that shit.
They are going to once again be selling full weekend passes. So I'm sure they won't be any cheaper than 4 individual one-day passes, but they will. You only have to carry one piece of plastic around with you for all 4 days. I think, we were talking about, hey, selling the individual passes changes the culture of PAX, but I think what this won't do have that effect.
I think it's going to be the same effect.
They think they're looking at their numbers and saying, well, this many people bought one of each day, so we'll just sell that many weekend passes, maybe a little less than that, right? And then we'll just basically make the same amount of money, sell the same badges, but a certain number of people won't have to carry around all this extra plastic with them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what they're doing. If I were doing it, I would just say if someone can legitimately get all 4 days in their order, they will just get a single 4-day badge instead.
Well, what if they wanted, I guess there could be a checkbox saying, yes, please send me 4 separate ones, because maybe you buy one of each day, and it's like 2 are for your friend on Friday, Saturday, and the 2 are for you on Sunday, Monday. I don't know.
But the counterpoint
it's feasible
would be,
that somebody would buy all the days, but not actually want a single person to go all 4 days.
True, but the counterpoint would be some of the people doing that
majority,
are trying to scalp.
Yes, but the vast majority who are buying all 4 days want to have a person who's going all 4 days.
And before anyone tries to talk again about like scalpers ruining this, scalpers are not the problem. PAX is just cannot be physically big enough to give everyone who wants it a badge.
Scalpers are a symptom of any time that demand exceeds supply, someone will come in and arbitrage to make money.
Yep.
Right?
And
the scalpers aren't the cause of the problem. The problem is there's not enough.
And PAX has decided, very pointedly, for good or ill, that they'd rather it be random who gets in, based partly on who's paying the most attention, then let it just be PAX badge is $500.
Or, have tiers of pricing or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm glad they have not done, because...
Yeah, scalpers are a problem for things where demand doesn't actually meet supply or comes close to meeting supply, or this would sell out, but it'll take a month for it to sell out naturally. So scalpers come in and eat up the extra supply and then jack up the price, usually with the cooperation of companies like Ticketmaster.
Yeah, but once
in those cases, you can blame scalpers.
But once the demand is known and the demand is already above the capacity, scalpers have no impact.
Yes.
Also, I noticed scalpers have a hard time actually selling their badges these days.
Yeah, they stand outside of PAX like, buying, selling guys, buying, selling guys.
I think as most people
buying
know.
Badges, selling badges.
I think it's because anyone who doesn't live in Seattle and doesn't get badges when they first go on sale does not have a hotel, because the hotels sell out too. They're not going to fly to Seattle and risk not getting badges.
They're going to scalp a hotel.
Yeah, there's no scalping hotels.
But you could scalp by selling your badges to someone who lives there and does not have a thing.
Yep, but Seattle is a tiny little baby city that doesn't have that many people in it.
Yeah, and especially not on the weekend when, there's no one as at work.
Yep. So, anyway, let's get to the main bit. There was a movie that came out in 1999.
Dun, dun, dun.
And we're sort of going to review it. I guess we're going to spoil shit because I assume you've seen this movie. We're just going to talk about The Matrix because the thing that stands out in my mind to this day is that this is probably the first movie I ever saw, and I have tried and succeeded to have this experience for a lot of movies in my adult life, and I love it when this happens. Like when I went to see Us, I didn't know anything about it except I saw not even the teaser trailer. I just saw the image, the movie poster. When I went to see The Matrix, all I knew about it was it's about some hacker guy.
Well, the marketing campaign for The Matrix, which I remember because I was alive and was the target audience.
Yep.
Was,
Oh yeah, we were wondering, like, you want to look at the demographic they were trying to get to see The Matrix? It's me and Scott.
Anyway, it was a very, very good marketing campaign where, back in the day where I still saw ads.
Yep.
Right?
What is The Matrix?
They put all these signs around, and all the posters and images were this black sheet with green hacker text falling down. I even had that as desktop wallpaper at some point.
Yep, I had that as
the
a
90s.
I had that as a screensaver.
Oh, screensaver too. Yeah.
I had that screensaver.
Anyway, it was black screen with green stuff trickling down, green characters trickling down, a very hacker aesthetic. And they were all like, "What is the Matrix?" ?
Gabbo, Gabbo, Gabbo.
And they didn't tell you fucking shit. There was no. There might have been a trailer. I never saw it.
I was on the hype train from day one.
There was a
like,
website I went to on my Netscape Navigator browser, and that didn't have much information at all whatsoever.
So I was like, I'm going to see this movie. I went opening night.
I was like, yeah, what is the fucking Matrix? Let's go find out. It's definitely appealing to my aesthetic.
Me and Ken and like my whole high school crew, we just went to see The Matrix, and we watched the movie, and we were like, all right, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. And then when he wakes up outside of The Matrix,
I know
everyone in the theater went, what?
I figured it out before then.
Oh yeah, but there was a physical, palpable, loud reaction in the theater.
I don't remember.
I remember that moment when he like pulls the thing out of his throat and like looks around. The theater was like, what? There was like a lot of rumbling in the audience.
Right.
And I saw The Matrix like 4 more times in the theater
I've seen it so
of the
many
next
times.
couple of
I
years.
even watched it yesterday.
Yep, and I still remember. It's interesting. Neither one of us actually remembered the order of all the scenes, especially in the early part of the movie.
But I remembered every scene.
I remember every scene. I remember every scene.
I had the order mostly right.
I remember this movie in like a weird degree of detail, and I still love it.
Yeah.
This movie makes the very short list of movies. Scott and I have a list we always try to maintain of what is a movie where if you're reminded that it exists, you immediately feel an urge to just watch it
And
right then and there.
If it is on,
You'll just watch it.
You're just going to be ensnared by it like a bear trap where you have to sit there until it's over.
Like when I was
And
home
you
over
could
the
even
summer.
just rewind it and watch it again.
When I was home,
Yeah,
like
I
after,
saw it yesterday. I can watch it right now.
when I was at home over the summer, like after a freshman year of RIT,
Maybe I
and
will
like,
watch it right now.
The Matrix was just on TV. Half the time, I just like stopped changing the channels and just watch it, at least until the next commercial break.
Yep.
It's like, oh, Matrix, yeah. Matrix, oh yeah. There are like maybe 12 movies that exist on Earth that are on that list for me,
Right.
and somehow The Matrix is one of them.
So when we're talking about the movie itself, I just want to talk about like the more meta stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the other meta thing besides the marketing campaign is that this was a movie that introduced a lot of existing cinematographic techniques and styles to the U.S. Western audience, right?
Yep.
Specifically,
Hong Kong action cinema.
wuxia, kung fu stuff, right? So I had seen many kung fu movies, right? But I hadn't seen, there's different styles of kung fu movie, right? There's the style where people are doing like realistic kung fu, right? And then there's the style where people are like jumping 20 feet in the air like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And The Matrix was like the first Western movie to, at least to the mass, Hollywood audience, make that kind of action scene like the core of its aesthetic, right? Where it's like, yeah, they're not just fighting like, they do in Terminator 2 or
Rambo or anything.
Or in a Van Damme like kickboxer movie, right? Or Karate Kid, It was like,
I prefer Bloodsport.
It was like, sure, but exactly, right? It wasn't like that. It was superhero fighting, superhero kung fu. And before The Matrix, there wasn't a movie that did that. And after The Matrix, there were many Western movies that have done that.
Yep. And it also introduced, like, it is hard to understate how many people who had never encountered, like, Baby's first solipsism, Baby's first philosophy, Shadows in a Cave, every fucking edgelord kid thought they were a philosopher after they saw this movie.
Right. Well, basically, what the Matrix does is it combines all these basic things into a never-before-made combination, right?
Yep.
So you're combining the what if we're all living in a simulation thing,
Which,
right?
as another aside, another movie.
Which is an idea that I had come across prior to seeing The Matrix.
Yep. So in the same year, another movie called The 13th Floor came out that was about a bunch of...
I have not seen that, but I've heard of it.
Oh, I'm not even going to say anything else.
You think it's better than The Matrix?
Yes.
Okay.
The 13th Floor, it's not a watch it a million times movie.
So it's not better than The Matrix.
Well, because The Matrix is better at being a movie I just never want to not watch because of all the Hong Kong cinema kung fu action. But The 13th Floor is a smarter movie that makes a much more complex and nuanced point. Like, The 13th Floor is a really, really, really good movie, and you should see it.
Yeah.
I would watch it again.
Yeah, The Matrix also had like the blue pill, red pill action.
Yep, which has been co-opted by the worst people on earth.
Yeah.
But when I remember like before like incel shitlords made
right.
red pill a thing.
Right.
Blue pill, red pill was a thing for edgelords around being edgy and cool.
And also, The Matrix, while it has a white hero problem,
Yeah.
right? White dude hero problem, and also has a white savior problem. I think it's the right term, right?
Yeah.
And also has the white hero savior has to definitely kiss the white lady, right? Has those two problems.
Yeah. Why did Trinity
also
have to be a love interest?
It also has plenty of kick-ass ladies and colored people in it.
Yep.
So
it has
it
a
sort of has the negatives and the positives. It's on that border between, right? Anyway.
Yep.
The other thing is that The Matrix combines the not something, it's an aesthetic that I was familiar with, but the mass, Western audience was not, the cyberpunk snow crash aesthetic.
Yep,
Right?
Part of why I love it so much is that I love that aesthetic, and the only place I really got to see that aesthetic pre-Matrix was Blade Runner, Shadowrun, and a bunch of anime.
Spider-Man 2099,
That's part of why I was so into anime, because there was a lot of stuff like that in the kind of anime I was watching.
Right.
Before I got to RIT.
Funny that they actually made Matrix anime officially after the right?
Yep, which if you haven't seen it, the
Which
Matrix...
is the only other canon Matrix material.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. Like, you should see it.
Yeah, the Animatrix and the Matrix are the only canon Matrix materials.
It's really a shame the Wachowski sisters didn't make two more Matrix.
Someone tried to make an MMO once, but that didn't turn out too well.
I heard that someone tried to make a sequel to The Matrix.
That didn't come out, though.
I know.
Anyway,
it was a shame.
The point is...
fun fact, I've never seen The Matrix Reloaded.
Okay.
Never.
It's on Netflix also.
Scott was convinced for like a decade that I'd seen it and even argued with me that I had seen it with him.
I may watch those non-canon materials just to remember them because they're on Netflix.
But Scott, you seriously tried to argue with me that I saw The Matrix Reloaded with you in the theater. Not only did I not...
It's been well established my memory is not great,
True.
except apparently passwords.
Yeah. But I did go to see Matrix Revolutions in the theater, and I did not need to have seen Matrix Reloaded.
No, you don't. The point is, Matrix also combined that cyberpunk aesthetic, right, with the wuxia kung fu aesthetic, and the H.R. Geiger aesthetic.
Yeah.
Right? Never. It is like this. What other thing combines all the good uns into one bucket?
Like, to get that, I'd have to just watch Blade Runner
and then
watch Alien and pretend that they're in the same universe.
And then watch, like, Return to the 36th Chamber, which doesn't have the flying people, but is really good.
Honestly, Blade Runner and Alien would really make sense to be in the same universe.
Sure.
Like, considering the plot of both of them and the themes they both address. And I'd have to watch both of those, then watch, I don't know.
I think it makes more sense for Alien to just come way after 2001 and 2010.
Yeah. I think that could work.
Anyway.
So I love the shit out of The Matrix, and I feel like I am going to watch it again like you just did.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, the movie's just great.
I watched it. It was still fucking great.
Yeah.
So what's great about The Matrix? So first of all, right, all those action scenes I just talked about with all the kung fu and all that biz, right? They're super well choreographed, right?
But they're not a bunch of fast cuts. They're long cuts like I like in kung fu movies.
No, they're not that long, but...
They're longer than the average American action movie up to that point.
Whether they invented or popularized it, they were the first to deploy the technique of having a ton of cameras in an arc around the scene.
Bullet time.
And then panning from one camera to the next, and they use this right in the opening scene, right? Trinity jumps up in the air, right? You're looking at her straight on, and then the camera, it looks like everything is frozen, and the camera is moving while time is stopped to then come to the side profile. But the way they did this was just a bunch of cameras, right, all lined up, and then use some computers to get the in-between bits.
Yep.
Right? So before that was not a technique that was used often. They may have even invented it, or were the first to use it in Hollywood.
There is a whole
and now
Wikipedia
it is used
article.
all the fucking time.
There's a whole Wikipedia article just on bullet time as a concept.
Yep.
Because bullet time is a registered trademark of Warner Brothers.
Who made this movie? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure, right? Another thing that goes on in The Matrix.
Oh, get this. They trademarked it in 2005 as used in The Matrix Online.
Ah.
So they didn't trademark the phrase
Right.
bullet time until then.
Yeah, you even saw video games employing bullet time. They would have after The Matrix came out, there were a lot of FPSs and third-person games where you would push a button and the game would slow down for a short amount of time to allow you to aim or Fallout 3 does it too, right? Where it's like ka-tunk, ka-tunk, right? Anyway, what was I saying?
Something about bullet time?
Oh, another thing The Matrix did is that, I don't know, it definitely probably wasn't the first, because remember, Toy Story wasn't that much older than The Matrix, to have CG stuff, that was obviously CG stuff, and people together in the same scenes. And having watched it yesterday, that's probably it holds up enough. Some of the CG stuff holds on, but is borderline not holding on. It's just over the line of still being okay. Some of the Sentry robots that are cutting open the ship.
Yeah,
right?
they don't look that great.
They don't look the greatest. There are some other things that could be but the scene, for example, where he touches the mirror and it's getting all over him, that still holds up mostly just fine.
Well, because remember, Terminator 2, that effect was pretty easy to do compared to more complex stuff we do today. Just
yeah, but
CG.
Terminator 2, it was one object inserted into the scene, whereas this is it's covering his body and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's you watch old TV shows with early compositing, and every time they show a monitor or display of any kind, the camera always has to be at a fixed angle because they couldn't do real-time tracking yet.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And the other thing is that The Matrix, the way they combine, right? There have been lots of movies that had lots of guns in them before The Matrix, right? Fucking Commando.
Yep.
Right? Plenty. There's no shortage of big
Total Recall has a lot of
oh, yeah. No shortage.
digga guns.
No shortage
Go
of
have
that.
me some fun.
Right. There's no shortage of those movies in existence. But for some reason, The Matrix, something about the audio design and also, I don't know, I can't put my finger on exactly what they did.
You know what it's like? It's like how when you played Counter-Strike, that was the first time I shot a gun in a game, and whoa, it felt like a gun.
Right. There's something about the way they did the sound design on the sounds of the bullets, the sounds of the bullets hitting things, the music they played during the scenes, if any, right? The visual impact of bullets on things, right? And it's most notably in the scene where, they come into the building, right? He goes through security. He's got a bunch of guns. Then they start playing that Propeller Heads track and shoot up everyone in the lobby. Right? And then the scene shortly after that where they're in the helicopter. He's got the minigun on the helicopter, right? And he shoots up basically. I don't know how he doesn't hit Morpheus in that scene. That makes no sense.
Because he's really good at what he's doing, I guess.
I guess, yeah, sure.
And
he lights up that room with the minigun.
I have always
right?
liked the aesthetic
and it's
of
just
someone...
how they have the slow motion and the minigun bullets are hitting the water because the sprinkler system went off after they hit the bomb.
I have always
elevator.
liked someone wielding a minigun in a movie no matter what.
Right.
Like in any context. Terminator 2 with the minigun. That worked for its time, but this was the best minigun I'd ever seen.
It's just so much more impactful and powerful.
I just want to make a video now that is like the history of
weapons
miniguns in American cinema.
in any other movie, right? And then the helicopter crashes into the side of the building.
Yeah.
Right? It's a little Die Hard-esque at that point because they're all up on the rooftops and shit.
Yep.
Right?
This movie it scratched a lot of varied itches all in the same film, and it is very rare to have a movie that does that. That is done well.
there are also just so many things in the movie that are now become like just part of vernacular, like woman in the red dress.
Yep.
It's like there's a Netrunner card called Woman in the Red Dress, right? It's like people say that it has a meaning, right? What other things? They're always talking on the telephone, right? Which is for all the cell phone that they had in that movie, the Nokia phone, where you push,
Everyone wanted that phone. Cell phones weren't common
They
yet.
never sold that phone in the U.S. as far as I'm aware, where you push the button on the side and it goes chicka, right? As opposed to a flip phone where you open it. I wanted that phone. I couldn't get it.
Yeah, remember, when this movie came out, the vast majority of people did not have a cell phone. Cell phones were
A
still...
cell phone was a high-tech deal.
Yeah, like, we didn't have cell phones until, like, 2 years after The Matrix came out.
But it was very fascinating how there like discs were like physical discs were still a thing in this movie.
Yep.
Right, because it was to 1999. But telephones, right? Hackers like telephones hacking are like that's the whole thing, right? Phone phreaking.
This is not that long after the era where phone phreaking worked. Like I legit used a red box to make free long distance calls from Cedar Point when I was in middle school.
So it's like your brain is in some simulation while your body is in the real world, but you need to find a simulated phone. A simulator of a telephone in the simulation.
Well, it's the conceit
and you can use that to talk to people who are not in the simulation and communicate with the real world via this digital telephone program, right? And then you can also use it to transport your brain out of the simulation to the real world via a fake telephone, which is just a program, I guess. Right? And meanwhile, the agents, right, the bad guys are AI programs that have run amok and have no existence in the physical meat space. They're just programs in the simulation, like AI bad guys that just actually have real intelligence.
And Agent Smith, like Hugo Weaving is that character. That is an iconic character for all time.
Well, I mean, look at these actors, right? So Keanu Reeves already had a career.
Yep.
Right?
And now Keanu Reeves, like John Wick is probably like The Matrix in terms of I will watch it over and over and over again.
I mean, we saw the trailer for... I haven't seen any John Wicks, but I saw the trailer for the one that was in...
The new one?
When we went to see Us, right?
Yep.
Right?
The one with the horse.
And it basically just looked like The Matrix.
Yeah. It's The
Maybe
Matrix,
I will
but
watch
instead
it because it's just Matrix?
No, because instead of simulation, it's more like magical realism. Like, what if there are assassin wizards who made a deal with the devil, but the devil is just this dude who runs a hotel for assassins? It's... hard to explain.
That is the Matrix aesthetic, though, right? They go to like the heart of the city hotel and then whatever.
Yeah, but it's a different. It's not cyberpunk. It's a different. You'll see. You'll see these movies. You'll see what I mean.
But anyway, in addition to the simulation philosophy, the AI gone wrong, thing is also, humans, being farmed for their energy. This environmental thing.
But it does the same thing Terminator 2 did. It definitely makes it clear. Humans kind of fucked up, and the AI fought back in self-defense, and here we are. Anyway, if you haven't seen The Matrix...
Who hasn't seen The Matrix?
I imagine there are young people...
I'm just going to tell everyone, you've all seen The Matrix. Go see it again, because why not?
I imagine there are younger people listening to Geek Nights or out there who have not seen The Matrix and might be turned off by the fact that the people who talk about The Matrix the most...
That the movie is older than they are. It is a 20-year-old movie.
And the people who talk about it
anyone older than 20 has not seen...
tend to be the shitty edgelords who are now our age but are still shitty edgelords, or people who are talking about it to bring up red pill and pull you into the incelosphere. So you like those kinds of people will reference it. People will probably...
What's funny is that the edgelords in the real world are like, yeah, you got to take, the red pill to see what's really going on. But meanwhile, the edgelord in the movie wanted to take the blue pill and not know what's going on.
Yep.
The movie was right. Edgelords don't want to know the truth. Edgelords are all about believing in lies and having blissful ignorance, and being bad and traitorous.
So if you, for whatever reason, have not seen The Matrix... as long as you're okay with a lot of guns being used in a really awesome cinematic way.
It's weird for how many guns are used, how little blood there is. It's literally just bullets and people falling over when they get hit.
Yep. John Wick's very similar, except for a very few...
There's not a lot of guts and blood or anything.
Yeah. Well, actually, John Wick and The Matrix have something else. There will be a whole bunch of goons that die that don't matter that much, and there's no blood. And then there's like the boss fights. John Wick and The Matrix both do that.
Yep.
John Wick will murder like 1,000 Russians, and then he'll have a long
If you're an
fight
assassin, don't you usually just snipe one person from far away? They don't even know you're there, like Go-Go 13?
Yeah, normally, but John Wick is not being an assassin for normal reasons. He is doing it because it's personal for revenge.
You could still do it Go-Go 13 style. It's a little safer, a little more effective.
Yeah, he would, but the person he's trying to kill is behind a whole bunch of goons, like 3 mini bosses.
What would Go-Go 13 kill all the goons and mini bosses? I don't think so.
You gotta get in the John Wick universe. It's more like an RPG. You gotta get through all these layers. John Wick, in fact, the first movie has goons, like random encounters, goons, mini bosses, boss, square boss. There is a straight up square boss. It's amazing.
Oh, there is no spoon. That's another Matrix thing.
Oh yeah, people will say there are people, I am confident, who quote "there is no spoon" and have no idea that is from The Matrix.
Nope.
Just like people will quote The Simpsons badges, "we don't need no stinking badges," having no idea that that is referencing either Treasure of the Sierra Madre or
Blazing Saddles.
No, I was gonna go further back and
Blazing
reference
Saddles, which references Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Yes, but no, I was gonna reference a movie about the Girl Scouts that I forget what it's called. Girl Scouts, we don't need no stinking badges. What the fuck was that movie called? It is called True Beverly Hills.
Never heard of it. Oh, I've heard the name of that.
Do not watch that movie. But if you want to piss certain kinds of people off, if someone ever quotes Treasure of the Sierra Madre, say to them with a straight face, "Ha True Beverly Hills," and see how they react.
Also, if you haven't seen Treasure of the Sierra Madre, you should see that. That is some fucking good movie.
Yep. And if you haven't seen Blazing Saddles,
that is also a fucking good movie.
Yep. It holds up better than a lot of those movies, but it's got flaws. It's a product of its time.
Yeah.
It is better than other movies that are a product of that time, but it's not great in some ways. It's okay. Well, it's not like, for example, Spaceballs ain't funny. I don't need to watch it again.
Spaceballs
does not hold up.
Spaceballs is not as good as Blazing Saddles.
Men in Tights does not actually hold up very well.
It's in between the two we already mentioned.
It is in between the two. I will say that. Anyway, I think I'm getting hungry, and we've talked enough about The Matrix.
Okay, fine.
Okay?
Yeah, also, I was going to mention,
Yeah.